Today, we're diving into something pretty amazing, a way to completely transform the modern science classroom. We're going to use one of nature's most incredible creatures to make some pretty complex science standards really come to life. Let's get right into it.
Okay, so if you're an educator, this question is probably on your mind all the time, right? The Next Generation Science Standards, or NGSS, are fantastic, but they demand a totally new way of teaching. So how do we actually bridge that gap between the standards on paper and that moment of genuine student-led discovery?
Well, to find the solution, we've got to first understand the new landscape. We need to get a feel for what the modern science classroom is all about, because it's really shifted from just memorizing facts to getting students to think and act like real scientists.
The first huge concept is phenomena-based learning. And really, it's pretty simple. It just means starting with something real, something observable and kind of puzzling. That's what sparks natural curiosity and gets students asking their own questions, which, is the foundation of all real science. And then you've got this other piece of the puzzle, three-dimensional learning. This is really the how. It's about students actively getting their hands dirty, engaging with those phenomena, figuring out how systems work, and building their own explanations based on evidence. It is a complete 180 from just passively reading a textbook.
So we need something kids can actually see, something that makes them curious, something real. What if the perfect tool was a living, breathing system that you could bring right into your classroom?
And that's where the ants colony comes in. This isn't just your classic ant farm from when we were kids. No, this is a dynamic biological system where students can watch incredibly complex ideas like social structures, communication, resource management play out in real time every single day.
Okay, so let's get down to the nitty-gritty. How exactly does this tiny, bustling ecosystem help you meet those tough NGSS life science standards? We're going to look at three of the big life science, or LS, domains where ants are just a perfect fit.
First up is LS1. This is all about structures and processes. It covers pretty much everything from how an organism is built to how it grows, develops, and, stays alive.
And here's what's so cool about this. Your students can see this stuff happening right in front of them. They can actually watch the different jobs the ants have, see the entire life cycle from a tiny egg to a full-grown adult, and observe how the colony processes food. Suddenly, those diagrams in the textbook seem kind of boring, right?
And this is where the magic happens. A student might just look at the colony and ask a simple question like this. But that one question can launch a whole investigation into specialized body parts, social roles, and what a complex organism truly needs to thrive.
All right, next up, LS2, which is all about ecosystems, how living things interact with each other and their environment. And an ant colony? It's a perfect, self-contained little ecosystem right there on the shelf. I mean, think about it. Inside that one habitat, students can track how energy flows from the food they provide to the growth of the whole colony. They can observe the incredibly complex division of labor and even run little experiments, like gently changing the temperature, to see how the whole system responds in real time.
So, the investigation for this standard could start with a simple what-if question. By exploring this, students learn firsthand about resource management, how individuals depend on each other, and how a whole system reacts to change. Those are all huge ecological concepts.
And last, but definitely not least, we have LS4. This covers biological evolution, adaptation, and diversity. And you might be wondering, how can we possibly see that in a classroom? Well, it turns out you can, by comparing different kinds of ants. The key here is variation. It's all about comparing different species. So by looking at harvester ants next to carpenter ants, for instance, students can physically see how different traits, like the shape of their jaws or how they build their nests, are actually specific adaptations for surviving in completely different environments.
A question like this is huge. It really gets kids to put on their evolutionary biologist hats, It pushes them to connect the evidence they can see in ants' physical traits to a claim about how it survives and adapts over time. So we've seen how these little guys check all the boxes for the core science ideas, right? But here's where their real power comes in. It's their ability to just naturally weave together all three dimensions of learning into one single experience. Just look at this. As your students are watching the ants, that's the core science idea, they're also doing real science practices, like taking notes and recording data. And at the same time, they're wrestling with these big cross-cutting concepts, like cause and effect, or how a system works. It all happens at once, which makes this whole three-dimensional learning thing feel totally natural.
Okay, so this all probably sounds amazing, but I know what you're thinking. How in the world do I actually do this in my classroom? Well, the great news is you don't have to figure it all out on your own. Check this out. The Ant Shack Education Program gives you a whole toolkit to get you started. We're talking a free, standards-aligned curriculum, lesson plans all ready to go, observation sheets, data logs, even assessments. It really takes all the heavy lifting out of the prep work for you.
Seriously, getting started is as simple as 1, 2, 3. The whole program is designed to make it as easy as possible for you to bring this powerful, long-term learning experience into your classroom and your students. I love this quote because it just nails it. This is so much more than a classroom pet or some cute little novelty. It is a true, living laboratory for authentic, student-driven, scientific discovery.
So really, we're left with just one big, exciting question. When you give your students a real, living system to observe and question every single day, you're opening the door to endless possibilities. What will they be the first to discover?